The first log cars had no frame at all. The log itself was the body of the car. Logging cars started catching on in the 1890s. Once steelwork became affordable enough to build them, the earliest ones were nothing more than two trucks, meaning two axles with wheels on them. The same word skateboarders use for the wheels and axles under a deck, not the modern definition of a truck. One truck went under each end of the log. So, however long a log was, that was how long the car could be. It also meant a load could look like a whole section of forest disappearing at once. Since the tree was still unprocessed, just knocked down with the limbs trimmed off and dropped straight onto the trucks. Nothing actually held the trucks onto the log, though, so they'd work their way loose, and the whole thing would collapse. By 1908, cars picked up a skeleton body, a frame connecting the two trucks, so they couldn't slide out from under the load anymore. Loading them took a machine called a McGiffert, a big, tall, long-legged rig that straddled the entire train. It would crane a log up onto the car below it, then either roll forward to the next car or let the train move underneath it and crane up the next load in line. Before any of this, the only way to move a big tree any real distance was to drag it to a river and float it down to the sawmill. Railroads changed that. Crews would run tracks straight into the middle of an operation, use mules to haul the trees over to the rails, load the train, and send it down the line. When they finished cutting an area, they'd pull the tracks up and move them to the next spot. I was yesterday years old, or Friday years old really. When I figured that part out, I'd always just assumed they moved deeper into the forest and built more track. Truth is, I just never thought about it before. What a car was built out of came down to era and company. The originals were wooden frames with steel wheels, log for a body. That gave way to steel trucks. Then the skeleton frame, sometimes adjustable and sometimes fixed, and eventually to a flatbed design. The one I'm drawing today is a steel flatbed with rails to hold the logs in place. Judging by the rest of the train it came with, I'd put it around the 1960s. The Englewood Railway was the last company running rails all the way up into the trees. Operating from 1917 to 2017, a full 100 years. In 2017, an accident took 3 lives, and that was the end of it. The cars themselves still exist, but the companies that focus strictly on this kind of railroad logging have dwindled away, partly because of how dangerous it is, and partly because trucks are just cheaper now. If a flat car hauls logs today, it's usually just rails bolted onto a standard flatbed, not the skeleton frame they were building in the early 1900s. Most of those old skeleton cars have either been scrapped or ended up in museums.